Once again, folks, I am joined by Dr. Christine Bacon. Professor Bacon teaches communications, and she also hosts her own radio show, Breakfast with Bacon. Welcome on once again, Dr. Bacon. So
Thank you
pleased to
for
have.
having me.
So we both have talked in the green room a little bit about what the topic for today, and that is pedagogy, specifically higher. What is higher education? What's up with it? What's going on? And can social things be a science? Can social science? It used to be social studies, things like psychology, sociology, even communications, but now they're social science. What is up with that? What's the difference?
Isn't that funny? One of the first things I did when I got into my PhD, I remember thinking, oh I'm not smart enough to get a PhD. That's for smart people. I had never had this desire, these intellectuals. This is one of the first things we studied that first semester was, what is communication? Is it a field, or is it a field, or is it I can't remember anymore. I remember thinking to myself, why are we even caring if it's a field or if it's why am I missing the word? It's like saying, is it a field or is it a real...
An area of study?
Yeah, we were trying to label that.
Okay.
And I thought, you're wasting a whole lot of my time debating whether or not it's a field, right? Because it's loaded with people who want to do it. So whatever it is valuable if people want it, right? If people want to buy a diamond, the diamond is valuable.
Yeah.
So people flock into the communication degrees, so it's got to be valuable. So calling it social science, I mean, I get it. I get it for people who can't tangibly label that which is communication, or, what are some of the other soft skills? Social sciences.
Psychology, sociology.
Right.
But yeah, all those things, or, I find it interesting that the politics or government studies is turned into political science. Like, oh yeah, because politics is totally a science. You get your little test tube of politics and you pour it over here, and then you record the data.
Little Democrat into a little Republican, you get
yeah,
that's a science.
Right. And I have the same sensation when we talk about all these other social science fields. What right do they have to call themselves a science? Now, they wiggle out by saying, well, it's a soft science. No, it's not. I don't see how it's a science at all. Why is that? Why is it called science anyway?
So we should say communication studies. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you're studying communication.
Studies.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Science is science. Sociology, communication is communication.
Right.
That's kind of what we did that first semester of my, PhD. To which I was saying, who cares, right? Who cares? Which you do, and I'm not being hurtful, but my intent goes to this. I was always one of those students that said, which is why I didn't seek the PhD. I was kind of like, what do I care about all this lofty intellectual knowledge if you can't make it work for my life? What do I care if so-and-so's got this thesis of, whatever, and so-and-so's got this thesis? Make my marriage work. So you're talking about communication and these principles or those principles. And then, if you've ever studied, I mean, I know you don't yet have your PhD, you'll probably be one of those that gets it because you are an intellectual kind of guy. Maybe, maybe not, right? Okay. Who knows? I never thought I'd have one at 21. I didn't even have a bachelor's at your age, so.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so what you guys just keep chewing on and chewing on and chewing on and chewing on all this information.
This fluff.
And some people call it fluff. So, I remember getting frustrated because I learned that a PhD is a degree in argumentation. So people love to argue, and that's fine. Lawyers like to argue, and there's a point to their argument, right? Is my client going to win, or is your client going to win? Mm-hmm. That's a little bit more tangible. But when it comes to other sciences, like communication studies, we're telling you about how to communicate with other human beings at base, right? So whether I'm doing media studies and I'm going through the television, the radio, blogs, the internet, how does Christine Bacon who's in, several hundred miles away from you, Alex, how do we communicate? How do we connect? Are we connecting? Is this valid communication?
I'd like to think that.
Right?
I'd like to, yeah.
Right. So, well, back in the day, face to face was number one, but now mediated communication is number one because you have broad, width.
Right.
Yeah, but face to face you have depth. Well, isn't there a place for both? So I do find it is such a rich study because you have all these different areas of communication. But what does communication boil down to? Ultimately, you and me. It boils down to, of all the humans, I think there's over 7 billion people alive today on this planet, I believe. Right now, 6,999,000,000 of them have nothing to do with me, just you.
Yeah.
All the moments in my life, and I will never get this minute back. It's gone.
Right.
You've given it. You gave me a gift of your minutes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Right? I appreciate it because you could be communing with any other human, but you picked me. And in essence, every moment of your life, Alex, is that. So you're communicating with whoever you have on your radio show.
I'd like to point out I'm directly communicating with you. This important distinction, because right now, once I upload this, put this online,
you're communicating with thousands of people.
I may not have even met them in person. I may never even meet them in the future or ever hear who they are. I love you anyway. And whoever you are, make sure to subscribe.
And who are they subscribing to?
Me. My channel. Yeah, Alex Medallion, ALEX space MADAJIAN. The channel, the YouTube channel where you are currently watching this video.
Hit the subscribe button right below. Look, we got it.
Yeah, that was easy. But I want to get back to the educational discussion. Here, I will drop a hard question on you, a really hard question. What does the PH in PhD stand for?
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Philosophy.
Exactly. This is my biggest problem with the PhD. It's become more of they're just cranking them out. And they're not really, the weight of a PhD is something Newtonian. When Isaac Newton, he came out with his ideas, he flipped everything over on its head. And that's what I think a PhD is. It's a philosophical doctrine. You change the doctrine of your field philosophically. But nowadays, what it is you get in there, look in the ultra specific, you do maybe a couple studies or a couple tests, and then prove, well, maybe it's just a little different over here in this tiny itty bitty and minuscule thing.
Bit, right.
It's, someone that deserves, philosophical doctorate in communications be someone like Dale Carnegie. Or some like Gary Chapman, some person who comes up with this great idea that nobody else could have conceived of, but that's not what it is. Do you think that's a fair assessment of the PhDs in America today? You think that's fair of me to say that?
And I want to make sure I know what you're saying before I say yes or no. So like the fact that someone creates a PhD in leadership, or someone now they're creating a PhD in there's some new programs here, but these newer programs, let's create a PhD in that. Let's create a PhD in jump roping. Let's creating a PhD. I know that.
Underwater basketry.
Right. So that's what you're talking about. You're going to be an expert in it. So you're saying that they're getting watered down because we have so many in any.
Yeah, I think it devalues what a PhD ought to mean, and it ultimately creates a lot of intellectual phonies that people feel like they need to be beholden to because they're an expert. And we have to listen to their opinion.
All that you said, and I will tell you, case in point. I am the same person I was before I got my degree in 2010. I have the same value. I have the same flaws. I stutter at the same things. I still trip when I run. I still put my foot in my mouth. And yet, once people see that doctor by my name, they stand up straighter. They want to talk to me more often. They're like, oh, what are your thoughts? They value my thoughts more.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, you're right. It does add value. People want to get that. But if everybody's got a PhD, who is Christine Bacon? I'm
Right.
same
And also,
kid that grew up in Milwaukee who went to school.
if 10 people with master's degrees say one thing, but one guy with a PhD says another, what is that?
That's right.
Like how many master's degrees is a PhD worth, you know? Do we then we have to go by the university they went to, or
that's right.
You know, or whatever. But that now I'm sitting here like, why should we trust people who go, like, for example, you've probably heard of Peter Singer. I think that's his name.
I haven't, actually.
No. He's a philosophy, he teaches ethics at, I think, Princeton or Harvard, some Ivy League school. And he's a pretty, in my opinion, he's rather logical. If you agree that things really only have life when they have value, they're only human when we give value to them, then it's completely okay to abort a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old child. Now, if you're never been around kids, 5-year-old, you've been talking for maybe 2-3 years. You can talk, okay? You know who mommy and daddy is at 5. But this guy who is literally, we have elevated him, the academic community, the intellectual community has elevated him to be the #1 guy when it comes to morality. So why is it that people are attributing all this trust in our academics and our intellectuals when they're saying, like, yes, if you, the mother, choose to, you should be able to abort. It's a woman's choice. If she aborts a child,
wanted. Well, actually, his dad wanted him, but he didn't have a right. So okay, I'm two-sided on there because I do have this PhD, and I don't want to pop to the religion. I'm just going to quickly touch on religion. Okay. I'm Catholic, and what many Catholics don't even realize, certainly many Protestants don't realize it, is we are at the beginning of another schism, a very big schism that happened like with Luther, because the Catholic Church has been infiltrated with this
pedophilia movement.
It's not pedophilia, it's actually pederasty. It's a homosexual subculture, and the media do not want to report it as such.
Do you think it's been going on since Vatican II, or?
Prior to Vatican II, I really suggest you buy a book by Dr. Taylor Marshall, because he's a doctor, right? So he's got things to talk about. It's called Infiltration, just came out last month, and he talks about it wasn't just Vatican II. It's actually been an intentional infiltration of the Catholic Church. And if you go into the church, and you said to me yesterday, so I'm touching on faith, but I'm going to get off of faith and go back to education. You said to me yesterday, we don't have any heroes. We don't have any mentors. We don't have any role models. And you are 100% spot on. My generation had some. And for me, as a growing up girl who went to Catholic school, my priests, the bishops, my goodness, if they had a collar on, you can trust them. We as Catholics and much of the world are having our eyes open radically now, going, we cannot trust the Roman Catholic hierarchy blindly, because there is a subculture of, there's some estimates have been 50 to 80% active homosexuals.
50 to 80%.
50 to 80% in the Vatican. And and this is stuff I've been listening to for over a year now, various educated journalists and so on and so forth. And so we could maybe do a show on that another time, but not for this moment. And so what I'm bringing that back to is that I wish I could trust priests blindly like I did when I was a child, but I can't. I wish I could trust an academic with the PhD after his or her name, but I can't. So I can't remember specifically what the question was, but the nature of our academics is we value, and there should be some value with that priesthood, because there are good men who are priests. There should be some value with Christine Bacon having a PhD, because she really went to school some stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
But you should not trust me blindly. You should not trust that priest blindly. And so we have to do our own discerning, and we have to do not just based on feelings, clearly not based on feelings, but intellect, study, faith, a combination of all these, and what we're doing here, communication.
Yeah.
You're building or you are tearing down trust with me right now. I'm either learning from the things you say and do that. Can I trust this guy?
Well, there's another aspect to that is that my generation doesn't really have a pool of knowns anymore because so much is being questioned nowadays. Because, all of human history, there are certain things that, a lot of things that just were not questioned because it would destroy the universe and society as we know it.
Like,
yeah.
Penises and girls have vaginas, and we didn't question that.
Yeah, mind blow. So because we're, everything that we've known is now being questioned. It's like, well, you can't say that anymore. Well, and you also can't publicly discourse it now because we've isolated ourselves in echo chambers. If you say this, that, or the other thing, you'll get doxxed, beat up, yada yada.
The word
so we can't talk about it. We can't investigate it. We don't have that. That's the big thing is what reference book, because we can't use the Bible because we also don't believe in the Bible all of a sudden. If we don't have anything, any sort of epistemology, a theory of knowledge, any basis, then what do we use to test people, if they're an academic? How can we trust them? How do we know whether they're a trustworthy academic or intellectual?
That veracity is does what you see match up with, is it matching up with what is truth, what really happens, so again, I keep going to this issue because it's just so black and white and it's so easy and it's right in our, to say that a man can have a child, he can give birth. Does that match up with what you see? Right? Doesn't probably. Now, you're a man and you have the biological parts that a man has.
You haven't checked, have you?
Right, and I'm not going to. So.
Okay, good. I was worried I just ended up in a Catholic priest's office or something.
So what I hear, does it match up with what I see? And does it match up with what I see consistently? And do I check it with those with whom I disagree? That's another thing. We are afraid to have an intellectual conversation. A liberal and a conservative don't often get into the same room because they've learned to tear each other down. They can't have an intellectual conversation, but that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
We need to challenge. So when I start my classes, I teach communication. I teach communication between the sexes. I teach public speaking. I teach communication, all kinds of communication classes, but always the interpersonal. I don't teach the mediated. I only go to like the public speaking class.
Okay.
I love challenging my students to talk about those subjects everybody tells them not to talk about. I say, do your speech on abortion. Do your speech on politics. Do your speech on Trump or Hillary. Do your speech on what, fill in the blank.
Taboo things.
Blacks and whites, racism.
Right.
But I want you to, in terms of veracity, I want you to go and find the arguments that the other side is presenting, the people who present an argument different from yours. And I want you to present what are their reasons, because I'm solidly pro-life, but my pro-abortion friends aren't pro-abortion friends because they're evil. They're pro-abortion friends because of things that they've done and ways that they've lived and people they've met and experiences they've had. They're not sticking their hand in a hat and going, I choose pro-abortion because I feel like it. But if you listen to the media, many media will bash the many pro-life media. I don't want to even say that because I don't know any pro-life media that'll bash. There's this undercurrent, this thought that they must kind of be bad. Are you familiar with the movie Unplanned that just came in?
I actually saw the original screening at the March for Life. Just saying.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
In that movie where they said, oh, you made abortion workers look good. You didn't make us look bad. And Abby Johnson, who's a former abortion worker, said, well, abortion workers are not bad. Yeah. They're just people with opinions trying to do what's good.
She says, as a former abortion worker,
Exactly. So that movie kind of epitomized what I'm saying here in terms of, if people disagree with you, don't tune them out. The intellectual conversation is something we used to have but we no longer have. America was founded on, I have a book right there on my bookshelf called Eloquence. Love it. And it actually talked about, and I did that one in my master's. When our nation was founded, we'd have people traveling far and wide, like people going to a, a Lady Gaga concert, or I don't know who's the, who's the most money-making person out there, right? We love going to concerts to be entertained, right? Back in the 1700s, you'd have these two, let's just say Republican and Democrat, because that's familiar to today's terms.
Yeah.
They were Whigs or whatever they were. Coming, and they'd have thousands of people in these auditoriums or whatever just to hear good, solid arguments with language that was just so eloquent, but you could still dig in if you wanted to get. And so people didn't tear each other down, but they spoke truth, and they had to do their research, and then you could leave that event with your own decisions of, I believe person A, or you know what, person B had some really sound arguments. So they taught us how to trust, right? I mean, I think that's where your first question goes. Who do you follow? You've got to follow the person with whom you're in your well-formed conscience, not just a conscience, but your well-formed conscience, plus your experience, plus what you see of that person. They have to all match. They have to match. Then you can go. And the people who I love and respect, my mom, I probably love and respect her more than anyone. My mother doesn't even have a high school diploma. She's got a great, great wisdom.
Right.
And yet, I agree with 98% of the things my mom says,
Okay.
Every now and then she'll say something that I don't agree with, but that doesn't mean I denigrate her. That doesn't mean that I disrespect her. And that doesn't mean that I devalue any of the other 98%. Yeah. So I don't know, what would I say to someone like you? Here's what I would say, if you want to kind of give it as, find that person or persons with whom you trust on most issues, and kind of follow that person's lead, whether they say yes or they say no, right? Yes, you should do this. Yes, you shouldn't. Most of the time, in comparing to what do I feel right here in my conscience. Yeah. I don't know if that's fully making sense, but they're going to make, but don't just go with one person. Find your tribe, your community, this man in this area, this woman in this area, this teacher in this area, because they all kind of seem to make sense.
As best you can. As best you can.
You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to make bad decisions.
Yeah, well, welcome to life.
Right? I'm 54, and I thought I'd have grown out of bad decisions.
Oh, it's so yesterday. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to both me and Dr. Christine Bacon. Professor Bacon, thank you so much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. Folks, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. And Dr. Bacon, we will be seeing you very, very shortly. Thank you again.
You're welcome. I'm proud of you.
Oh.
Not condescending, audience.
Oh, stop you.